BD also saying, was wondering if you spoke about Clinton Williams and the possibility of. Oh, you mean Quinnen Williams? No, I haven't talked about Quinnen Williams yet. But if we can take a break really quick and talk about it for a second because uh, that's kind of all I really had on joint practices. So the news broke this, I think it was this morning. Quinnen Williams, the defensive tackle for the New York Jets, had made an adjustment to his bio, I believe, on Twitter, where instead of it saying defensive tackle for the New York Jets, it just says defensive tackle dot dot dot. Basically, kind of hinting that his future is kind of up in the air. And I know everybody does it. I did it for like a split second, which is like, well, hey, if he's available, the Lions should go out and go get him. And I think that's a no-brainer, right? If Quinnen Williams is truly available, if the Jets are actually interested in trading him, Brad Holmes should do the thing that I always say he should do. Do your due diligence and at least see what the asking price is. You have a need at defensive tackle. Quinnen Williams is one of the best, the very best. And it would immediately elevate this defense to another level. You did so much investment on the secondary. Where adding a guy like Quinnen Williams, whatever the asking price, would at least seem like it's worth the investment. If it's two firsts, I can see why it's that. But if I take that part out of it, the idea that like, hey, this should be a no-brainer. Quinnen Williams, top tier defensive tackle. Lions have a need. We also always have to factor in the fact that the asking price for these types of players are high, right? Quinnen Williams, the reason why he's unhappy right now is because he wants a lot of money, right? A lot of defensive tackles got signed this offseason. I believe it was Deron Payne got signed, um, Jeffrey Simmons got signed, and all of those guys got signed for over 90 million, as far as like the full length of the contract. So if the Lions are going to go into the sweepstakes of signing a Quinnen Williams or trading for a Quinnen Williams, I mean, well, you got to be ready to pay that price tag. Um, Now, if we can speculate, if we can just like have fun with it for a second and let's speculate a little bit. If you were to trade for a Quinnen Williams, the easiest, like this would probably be the best time to do it because you can get out of Jared Goff's contract next year, which is honestly like the biggest holdup for anything. Is like if you're not going to if you're not going to pay Jared Goff over 45 million a year, you can almost kind of treat like any move you make as like, hey, we can make these moves because we have an out. We have a way of having a cheap quarterback, and it makes it easier to make these kind of moves. Well, you could essentially cut Jared Goff next year, and once we get to the Hendon Hooker stuff, you'll understand why I'm saying this, and that you could realistically start Hendon Hooker next year and have a very, very cheap quarterback. So we're talking about a quarterback that you took in the third round. So his contract is even cheaper than that of one taken in the first round. And you have so much financial flexibility to take on a Quinnen Williams contract and still have a high quality offense, have the defensive pieces that you've already kind of signed. Obviously, you'll need to re-sign some guys or go out and find some veterans to bring in to help with that secondary. But it would kind of make sense in that sense if you wanted to again kind of push all the chips to the middle of the table, and really make an like sell out for the Super Bowl essentially this year. I don't know if the Lions necessarily do that, but it's not like a far stretch. It's not hard to understand why you would do something like that. There's a lot of benefits to going after a Quinnen Williams, and he's definitely worth the money, right? I think there's sometimes we kind of question like, hey, is this guy worth the money? Is he worth, 90 million and things like that? The Lions have gotten burnt on giving a guy a contract like that with Trey Flowers, but Quinnen Williams has done it longer and he's done it in a style of defense that would fit what the Lions currently do. It's not as big of a stretch as when you brought in Trey Flowers and tried to kind of fit him into a Matt Patricia style defense that wasn't working for anybody. Um, Steve was saying the Jets are going to want two first for Williams, and then they will have to give him 20 to 25 mil per season. Exactly, you are. So like, if you're selling out, right? You're going to sell out for a player Quinnen Williams, caliber. If you're going to decide to trade for him, I think he's worth the price tag. You have, like I said, you have the young nucleus that you need to be able to take on a player like this. You just drafted Hutch. You have James Houston. Um, You drafted Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, like, you just re-signed Alex Anzalone, so, like, your linebackers are set. You'll need to figure out the secondary thing as far as, are you gonna draft more guys next year, or can you re-sign Emmanuel Mosley, um, and things of that nature, but then you still would have that depth of having, you would have Aleem, you would have Isaiah Buggs, Quinnen Williams starting. We'll figure out how healthy Levi is or how healthy Levi stays. Um, and then you can kind of like you have a solid defense. Not to mention your offense is really young, and the fact that you have JMO Saint, your offensive line for the most part is taken care of. You need to figure out what you're going to do with Jonah, but you drafted a guard this year that you're developing, and hopefully he'll be able to compete for a starting spot in a couple years. And then, like I said, you have a young quarterback in the wings that's waiting, and that's a like a really cheap contract, so you can afford to give a lot of money to a player that, like Steve says, I think Williams is worth the price tag. Like he is, and he would be that thing that really like puts a chokehold on this division, right? Because that's kind of the next thing we're going to kind of jump into, um, really quick. Well, actually, Joel C is actually saying that's way too rich for a defensive tackle. I'm getting out the pitchforks if Brad does this. Even if so, Joel C, let talk to me real quick. Even if it meant that you would like for sure have the best defense in the NFC North. Because I think right now, I think we all are saying that the Lions have the best defense, and I feel like it's kind of by default. But I think there is an argument to be made for Green Bay having one of the better defenses, in this division. Minnesota is clearly butchering their defense. I don't know what the hell they're doing, but they clearly are just determined to just probably try to outscore people this year and not play defense. They're going to probably look a lot like our defense did a year ago. And then the Bears added some pieces, but they're in a similar boat as us where it's like you have to see those pieces, see how well they gel and if they're actually, going to be able to have the chemistry they need to be a high quality defense in this league. So I don't know. Like I see your point. It's a huge price tag. It's a huge asking price, but I think for the benefit of securing your defense and making it one of the top defenses in the NFC, I don't know. I think it's kind of worth it. I think you would finally have a guy on your defense. Like I know Hutch is looked at it being the guy, but Quinnen Williams would make everything easier for your defense, right? Hutch is You're not going to be able to double Hutch as much on the outside if you have to deal with Quinnen Williams on the inside. If you have Quinnen Williams on the inside, Jack Campbell can make more plays because you have a defensive tackle that can actually destroy blocks and keep your linebacker clean. Quinnen Williams is also great at rushing the passer. I believe last year he had like 11 sacks, I believe, from a defensive tackle. Like that's great. So if you have a defensive tackle that's creating pressure in the middle, well, now your secondary can make more plays and be more locked down because quarterbacks are going to have to process and move faster based off the pressure that they're getting from your defensive line. So the domino effect of having a Quinnen Williams, I think is really good. And I understand 2 first round picks is a lot to ask anybody for. Completely understand, but it's something that I think would pay off dividends, um, for this defense. Big T agreeing with me saying Q Williams will complete this defense completely. I agree. Again, we're looking to solidify a unit that again is good, is played much better down the line or down this, the stretch of the season. But if you can get those key pieces that really like puts your defense over the top, I don't know, like, sometimes you have to make those gambles. Sometimes you have to pull a Les Snead and say, "F these picks," and just trade them away for high quality players that are still I see the other thing too, that they're still young. Quinnen Williams is still very young. It's not like you're trading for a 31, 32-year-old defensive tackle. You're trading for a guy that's still in his 20s and still has a lot of football left and has a lot of room to get better. Um Joel C saying, "I fully feel you. Lions defense with Williams is super scary on paper." That's all I'm saying, right? And sometimes you're gonna have to, make those gambles. And maybe this year is too early to make that gamble. I'll admit that, right? You had a good year last year, just barely missed out on the playoffs. Maybe you want to see what you have in this group now before you decide to start mortgaging your future to put you over the hump. Maybe you want to see if you can get over the hump on your own with this current cast of players. And I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to get mad at that if Brad Holmes, decides to not go after Quinnen Williams.